Hi, I'm Donnie Booben, and welcome to yet another episode of Life Lived in Purpose. Now, today I'm going to be talking about your journey on the road of destiny and purpose. So, when you fully and finally ready to commit to walking on that journey of purpose, be reminded that it will be traumatic for some people in your circle. Um, Let me explain this to you in more details and just give you some biblical, reasons why it happened and how you can overcome some of the challenges that you may face once you decide to change your life from just living to actually living in your purpose. So let's be honest, not everyone will be upfront about your journey and your mission. In fact, there will be a split for many of you, whether it's a career split, family split, friendships, anything. Because remember, God is bringing you back to to the beginning of where He originally had designed for you. So that means the career you choose initially, it may not be where God is taking you. And you may have to walk away from it in order to step into the new or step into what God had originally created for you. So God loves the new. We all know this. God loves everything new. He loves us starting over. He loves us trying new things. So He doesn't give us old wineskins to reuse, but He wants us to pursue new wineskin, new things on our purpose driven journey. So yes, there are going to be some times when you may have to leave a place that He may be calling you to in order to move into your new destination. So when you do that, you will sometimes you will get negative feedback, and you may experience emotional trauma from such moves. But the first thing you might be, you know, first thing you may face, in fact, is leaving familiar places that you may have gotten comfortable being in. And, but here's the thing with God, He may require us at times to relocate, change our environment. And yes, it can be difficult. It can be difficult because I myself have experienced it. Just changing my environment and having to move away from things that I was so accustomed to or familiar with. So yes, I understand that it may also be traumatic for some of you when you do decide to finally commit to walking in your God-given purpose. So why do I say this? I say this because yeah, it happened to me. And in fact, I rebelled. I rebelled when I knew that God was calling me into a different direction. Um, in fact, I kicked and screamed at God for a long time, like many of us do, and also blamed the devil at some point, for wanting me to uproot from my comfortable environment and situation and my lifestyle just so I could move into something I don't know about, like more like the unknown. I don't know what it is. So that's something too. But I'll be honest, the more I fought against it, the more I rebelled, the more emotionally drained I became. And so I rather started feeling a bit, uneasy about what I was doing. And I couldn't quite understand, why I still felt stuck. Why was I didn't feel like I was where I'm supposed to be, and I still struggled with that, even though yes, I was rebelling against God at the time. But the reason is that when God says it's time to leave a place or to move into something else, even in the best of environments, it will start to feel like a burden. Like instead of you wanting to actually do it, it becomes burdensome. Like you feel like you're there, yes, but you don't feel like you connect, or you're not supposed to be there at some point. So, for example, for me, at the time I was teaching Sunday school in a church I used to attend. So at first, it was a great joy doing it. I enjoyed teaching Sunday school. I enjoyed helping the children and doing what I did. I mean, I used to do it when I was younger, growing up in the church. But after a while, I felt God was pulling me, away to do something else. And I stayed, I shrugged it off, brushed it off, but I started feeling differently about being there. Something that it's a Sunday school I'm teaching, you would think that, oh, okay, it's okay, I'm fine. But no, I started having internal conflict about being there, even though it was a great environment. But I did still feel that pull, that there was something more that I was supposed to do. And so I had to take that into account, that God was indeed pulling me to do something else and actually go forward into that direction that He was calling me into. So that is actually a sign that it might be time, and it might be time for you to move into this particular place, or the whatever ministry you may feel, or you may already know that God is calling you into. In fact, remember, as I said earlier, your heart for some reason will not feel connected to there anymore. As much as it looks nice, as much as everything may seem okay, your heart will feel a little bit of a tug, as if your time up might be, your time there may be up, and that you don't feel the connection that you may have had in the beginning. You will rather feel more disconnected and kind of withdrawn or pulled away at some point when you're not where you're supposed to be. So I believe it's just one of the strange ways that God sometimes tells us, hey, it's time, that the place where you're at, we're finished there, and I need you to move into a new place, a new environment, or closer towards your destiny. So sometimes too, God may be calling us to kind of change from an assignment, for example. Initially, yes, He may have wanted us to learn or to do something at one point, but now He's calling us to actually focus on something else. And that's another clue too, that time is up as well, because He may be transitioning us to learn something. So maybe I'm learning something in that stage at that point, but now I need to move into something else, because He wants me to learn another area, strategy, or whatever it is, based on what you're called to do. So that's another idea too, that we have to also be reminded that when your time is up at a place, you're going to start feeling this conflict and turmoil, because you're not where you're supposed to be on your journey of purpose and destiny. So the next thing, with a purpose-driven life, you have to be ready to be flexible about the changes that's maybe taking place in your life. Yes, it's okay to cry through them and fight through them, and do what you have to do to just kind of overcome that part. But at the end of the day, be at peace, with where you're going, and moving on from where God is calling you to pull away from into what He needs you to move into, or, in your purpose and destiny. Okay, here's another example from my own life. I knew God was calling me into ministry. In fact, I received the answer when I went up to prayers, just on a regular Sunday morning. I asked for prayers, actually, for clarity, on what my next step should be once I had left my career as a pharmacist behind. But little did I know that the person who was actually praying for me would have actually revealed what it is God was calling me to. That was a shocker. And it wasn't any, fancy church or prophetic church or anything like that. It was just a regular church on a normal Sunday, going up for prayers. So the person, of course, initially I didn't believe at first. And I kind of held it back a bit, but didn't really want to, kind of accept it. But once I kept going and going, it just started resonating with me. And it's that nagging feeling that never goes away, that when you're called to do something, it will always come come back in memory. Always, you always be reminded that, hey, God is calling you to do it and to step out and move forward into your purpose. So here I am 3 years later, actually, and I'm doing exactly what that prayer had revealed, even though I had shrugged it off for a moment. But I finally, when I moved into that path and direction, everything just seemed right. And that's what I am now currently walking into on my purpose and destiny journey. So in my mind, I thought, well, I guess I'm called to ministry, so I have to go to Bible college. And I did sign up for Bible college and even got a associate degree from it, because sometimes we feel like, okay, if we're being called to ministry, maybe we need to have a theological degree or some sort of background, that will help us to be better in ministry. But it didn't happen, because after I had finished that part of it, I decided to switch to another school, actually, to finish up. And then God dropped a bombshell. And I felt the need to actually leave the second school that I had started. And I wasn't going to leave one bit. And I kind of fought back, I fought back for some time, and once again blamed the devil. How dare, the devil is trying to tell me to leave, Bible college. It's important. I need to get it done. But it was actually God saying that I needed to move away from that and I needed to step into something else. But after I left that, what I thought God was calling me to do, after I left that, I actually had a sense of peace about it, and a peace about the decision that I made later on. Not that I had a choice, because my resources for that school anyway, it eventually dried up. So there was no continuing, and there was no need to fight God about it either, because I knew in my heart that He was actually calling me at that time to step away from that. And if God wanted me to continue on that path, then He would have left enough resources for me to actually finish and do what He wanted me to do. But it dried up and it was finished. It was time for me to move forward. And that's also another clue in your journey when trying to understand God, that sometimes things may follow the line, sometimes things may fall out of place, sometimes you may lose that career you were so holding on tight to. Sometimes you will just, anything can happen on your journey. But just know that whenever a door closes for you, it's not that it's something bad or you missed an opportunity or anything. Sometimes God is closing those doors in order for you to get on the right path or the right journey or the right career or wherever He is actually calling you to. So this was a conclusion for me for that reason. So God was not calling me into church ministry. That's the difference. He was actually calling me to marketplace ministry, which is completely different. Church ministry and marketplace ministry is different. So He didn't really need me to, or require of me to, get any degree whatsoever to what He was calling me to do. Rather, He wanted me to build the skills I needed for my current ministry, which was helping women and helping others to find their purpose in the world. So yes, I didn't really need a theological degree in order to do that. And hence why it made sense why, yes, He pulled me away from that in order to do something different. So therefore, as with anything you are doing for God, just make sure you're in the right place. Check with where you are right now and just see that you're in the right place where God is calling you to. Also, don't allow others to dictate either, what you should be doing. Always get that from God Himself. The only person you should actually be asking what you should be doing in whatever season, because people will dictate, like, okay, maybe you need to go to ministry when maybe you don't need to. So be careful of that on your journey. Always confirm whatever decisions you are making with God before you step into it. Another thing too is God, we have to be reminded that God already knows what He called us to. God created us. He knows what He needs us to do. So you want to investigate that more. You want to find out more based on the path that you're going to take, if that's the correct path for you, and inquire of God about it. Don't just, go on something that you're not sure of. First, find out from God in prayer and however way God talks to you, where is it you should be. And I can tell you, based on even my life, that anytime I've made a wrong move into the wrong direction, for some reason, He always steers me back in the right direction. And that's something to know too on your journey, that God will also recalibrate, I would say, or turn you back in the right direction if you should, however, take the wrong path on your journey. So here's another thing. So when you have how would I say, if you start feeling stuck or uneasy or quite frankly not happy in where you are currently, or any place, or you don't feel the connection you had before in a place, just understand that it's actually a sign that God may be calling you into something else, and take note of it. Take note of it and start to inquire more of, why do I feel this uneasiness, and why do I feel disconnected from a place that I was so connected to before. So here's why. Remember, purpose is a connection. Purpose is a connection because it's kind of what God had initially designed you to for you to carry out. So it doesn't matter what role it is that you're playing at any point in time, as long as it's your lane, then you will feel at peace 100%. So sometimes many of us may carry a feeling of guilt. We may carry a feeling of guilt, let's say, if we choose to kind of step down from a role. We may also be chastised by others for even considering moving away from something, that we don't connect with anymore. We don't have that connection for that place anymore. Okay, for example, again, in my life, I was initially connected to serving in Sunday school and in women's ministry. But later on, I felt, the pull that my time was up. And I still tried to keep going, still try to do what I have to do. But I didn't feel like I was serving there anymore. I didn't feel like I was doing, what I felt deep down that I was called to do. And I also, at the same time, when I left, felt extreme guilt, for leaving, because, hey, it's church and you're supposed to be serving in church and everything like that. But when I had to even tell my church family that, I was leaving, God was pulling me somewhere else, that kind of was tough to do. And it took some time for me to even recover from that situation. But now looking back, to that scenario, I know I made the right decision, because it was time for me to leave for a reason. It was time for me to leave to go into a season of writing, a season of blogging, speaking, and just ministering to others, in the marketplace. And God was more calling me to reach more of a global community than just my church community. So that's a different thing with marketplace. God may also be calling you to step outside of the church community to do something on a more global scale. For instance, like just sharing this YouTube video, I'm doing it on a global space rather than doing it in maybe a woman's ministry at church. So it now made sense, why sometimes we have to just listen to what God is saying to us, and we have to just get up, understand, get up and just go, even with the heartache, even with the pain of having to uproot. Just know that after all of that, you will be at peace with where He's calling you to. And everything will always make sense in the end. For me, after all of that time that I pulled away, now where I am, it makes sense why He was calling me into another direction. So go where you feel like God may be calling you to, and where He may be leading you to, and just be at peace. Be at peace about your decision. So I am now so happy. I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing. And I even wake up, ready to even give more of myself in this ministry than, ever before. I'm excited to be doing this and talking and helping others on their journey of purpose and destiny. So that's the peace. That's the peace that you get when you're in the right place and you're on the right path, no matter what it is. You may have thought initially, maybe God wants, you to be, for example, the pastor at this church or, anywhere, but then you feel a disconnect, or circumstances start happening that, may force you out of it. And you shrink back sometimes, we shrink back in discouragement or even a feeling of failure. And, yes, and it happens and you know what? It's okay when it happens, because sometimes it's not a matter of you missing an opportunity or you're failing at something. Sometimes it's rather that your time was up there and God wanted you to leave. However, those closed doors, it never ever means that it's the end for you. So here's another thing. What if God allowed that to happen, to kind of help us to understand that He's calling you to something completely different? Let's think of it like that. What if you're not going to be the pastor of a church, but a pastor on a global ministry or a ministry outside of the church? What if you're called to do something bigger or greater than just behind the walls of the church? So don't ever feel like, it's the end of your journey and that's it for you. Actually, it never is, because you never know why that setback that you may have initially thought, I am done, I'm a failure, I didn't do what God was calling me to do, could actually rather be the setup for your growth and more of like a dynamic comeback. So think of that on your specific journey, all these failures or closed doors that they're sometimes closed, and the failures do come for a particular reason. So as I always say to everyone that I meet, don't ever put God in a box. I say it all the time. Never ever put God in your little boxes, and always inquire of Him first, what your next season of life should be, or what your phase of life should be in every season that you're in. So yes, your purpose-driven journey may look lonely. It will become lonely, because sometimes you are required to move in unfamiliar circumstances or situations outside of your comfort zone. Just be open to that happening and be at peace. Be at peace with it. Because remember, God always works everything out for our good anyway. He did it for me, kicking and screaming at Him, and He will do the same for you, no doubt. Now, here's to the point about relationships. Your relationships may change as well on your purpose-driven journey. When you choose to walk into a new path, there may be some difficult conversations that will happen for sure. The first of which will be why you decided to leave that job, why you decided to leave the church, why did you decide to leave that particular opportunity? It will be difficult for others, in the beginning. They will even question whether you're even hearing from God or not. I get that, all the time. And the funny thing about it is, you're the one, you know yourself, you know your relationship with God. You're the one who's struggling with those, whatever internal feelings you're having, not them. So, yes, you're the one who has to face what is it God is calling to you to. And sometimes, yes, they may not know, but it's you, your internal feelings, your situation, your circumstances that's happening that changes or redirects you into the direction God is calling you to. So, so that's another thing too. You're the one who is going through it. So you can't really rely on people's assumption, based on them thinking that, oh, maybe you didn't hear from God, when you're the one, who's actually fighting with God on a regular basis, or seeing how God is working in your own life. So many would even rather you too sometimes just to ignore it and kind of like sweep it under a rug. But you can't do that. You cannot sweep your purpose and destiny under a rug. But you cannot sweep, rather, what deep down God is calling you to do. You cannot hide your desires. You can't get rid of them. You can't mute them. You can't do anything. They will still be there. I call those desires nags. They nag you until you actually get up and pursue it, or until you tell God, I have no desire to do my purpose that you're calling me to. And that's it. That's the end of it. So always think about those nagging and the feeling that you're having in your heart about what God is calling you to. And don't do it for the sake of people pleasing either. Don't do things because you're trying to please people. Do things because it's what God requires of you to do. Not what man requires, but what God requires you to do. Because at the end of the day, you only give an account to God. When you go before God, He's going to ask you, did you do what I called you to do as His servant, and not the other way around? Okay? So that's another thing too. Be at peace knowing that God is calling you on the right path, in the right direction, and not to do it because of what people around you may think or feel. So yes, the only person you should be pleasing on your purpose-driven journey is God and His decision that He already has ordained for your life. Just like Jonah in the Bible, we all know the story of Jonah in the Bible, running from God at full speed, and it caught up to him. It's not any different, like for us, until you've made the decision that you don't want to do it anymore. It's the same concept. Jonah was running from God and God caught up with him with it. And then he decided to do it no matter what. But you can also decide that you don't want to do it. And then God will honor your decision. And that will be it. But I can guarantee you that you're not going to ever feel fulfilled in a life that is not your calling and not your path. You will feel the turmoil, you will feel the disconnect, and you'll always be asking the why, especially at the end of your life. Asking, why didn't I write this book? Why didn't I do such and forth? Why didn't I start things? So always be reminded that God's best and His purpose and plans over your life is perfect for you. And you want to try your best to just walk in it and to find out more about it and to do His will and purpose for your life. When I made that commitment to finally walk in God's purpose over my life, He started orchestrating everything to meet that commitment. That's another thing. Everything will start lining up for you to get towards that purpose and destiny path and for you to do what He's calling you to. So doors for working as a pharmacist actually remain closed. I've applied after I left pharmacy. I still applied trying to see, just making sure and trying to get back into it. But I never got any opportunities for a long, long time. So that door was closed and I was at peace about it after a while. So opportunities also fell through, and yes, resources dried up. I kid you not. But it was also a way for me to kind of navigate, the right doors opening for me. That was a way for me, to find what exactly the right path that God was calling me on and what exactly I needed to do or move into or learn more about as I started doing my new journey of purpose and destiny. So yes, it also became a lonely journey because I left a lot of familiar places, people, circumstances, and situations. However, where I am right now, I do not regret it one bit. I don't regret it now because I am 100% at peace with what he was calling me to, what he is currently calling me to do and also I now understand fully why. I don't have to question him anymore. I don't have I don't have those regrets of leaving any persons, places, or anything like that anymore. I am at peace with where I am right now and why he chose me to go in the path and the direction that he's calling me into. So I want to encourage you as well, to just allow God to kind of help you to get to that place as well. Trust him fully that he knows what's best for you. That's the part about God. You have to trust him. You have to trust that he will lead you in the right direction. He will work all things out for your good, and he will orchestrate circumstances and things that will happen in your favor. Unbeknownst to you, it will just happen. But you just have to trust the process, trust your timing, trust your season. Don't go into a season complaining of things not working right away, because sometimes he has a timeline for you. He has the process for you, and things may not work out initially how you perceive it to be, but he's always working something out for your good anyway. So remember, even in the Bible, Jesus experienced this. We all read those stories with Jesus that he experienced it himself. So know that, yes, friends, family members, places you used to work before, it may not be the same anymore, and that is completely okay. That's completely okay. And the same thing happened for Jesus too, and he had to explain it to us that yeah, it will happen, but just know that it's going to be okay. He will also heal our distress, he'll heal trauma, and he'll heal everything in between. But at the end of the day, when you're where you're supposed to be, that's all that matters. When you're where God needs you to be, you're being of service to him, and you're also being of service to him for mankind. So never forget that on your journey, you're moving away just like Jesus. He was going to be of service to mankind. And so it's the same for us. When we are leaving people, places, familiar things, we're not just leaving to just like that. We're leaving to commit our lives to God and to be of service to him and to also mankind. So God also often, reminds me that the ones who may have left you behind in the beginning on your path will one day also look back and see his glory in your life. And that will also allow them to want to follow suit and do what God is calling them to do. So be encouraged. Even in the midst of abandonment in any way that you may have experienced on your journey, be encouraged that it's okay. Jesus experienced it on his path, and he also told us to be aware of it many times on our own. But you can't hide yourself. You can't hide yourself. You can't hide your purpose and your journey or mission to please people. You just can't do that. You can only be accountable for your life. So thank you once again for tuning into another episode of Life Living Purpose. Please subscribe for more purpose-driven inspiration if you haven't already done so. Also, please get a copy of my new book, A Balanced Life, Moving from a Dysfunctional Life to a More Purposeful One. I actually wrote about how to transition, from a life that may feel stuck or stagnant to a life that is filled with you walking in your purpose, in your God-given purpose, and fulfilling the mission that God has for your life. Also, if you haven't read my memoir, I Am Who God Says I Am, always be inspired to live the life God has for you to live, God has planned for you to live. I wrote about my journey of actually rediscovering my purpose and identity, from a life as a pharmacist to now an author, blogger, and speaker. So grab a copy, and the link, as always, is in for both of my books is in the description box below. So until next time, I thank you once again for watching. Goodbye.